The Empire of Mali is one of the greatest countries that have ever came out of Africa. Supposedly descending from the Prophet Muhammad's best friend, but definitely descending from a handsome man who married an ugly lady because of a prophecy saying they'll have a great emperor after. Or Mansa, as they say. The story begins with Mansa Abu Bakr II, who only after 1 month decided to pack up all of his things and sail westward to see new lands, naming the settlement Tilebindu. Meanwhile, with his nephew back in Africa,
King of Mali is so rich he's going on tour to let everyone know. Wow, that guy's rich, everyone said.
Abu Bakr married his grandniece Miriam, expanded across the coastline of these new land. They were unable to recontact Africa, so they set up the new mosque of Dalabala, their capital. He established order for a while, and his son Muhammad II expanded the country greatly, made contact with the natives of this new continent, assimilating and converting many of the tribes, leaving many of their chiefs to become kings with the emperor on top. But by the end of their reign, they started having mass crop failure, and the natives started dying off rapidly, and they had no idea why. Then came his son Amadou, and then came his grandson Muhammad III, who tried establishing contact with Africa again and died in a tropical storm. So now the Mansa is a literal baby, and Mansa Muli I was known as the Simple because he wasn't the sharpest guy in the world. After 38 years, he was deposed by his 25-year-old son Muli II. Muli II is known as the Magnificent. It's associated with the start of the Tilebindu culture, finally setting themselves apart with their own culture, along with the early theology of Brahma Tankara, who created a new school of Islam, the Brahmi, who hold true to the ancient animist ways along with the natives of this new land, but with Allah on top. It's very similar to an early Muslim equivalent of the Haitian voodoo. He refurbished the Mosque of Dalaba, which has been basically abandoned for 30 years to be eaten by the jungle, and fixing the crops in a new faith that's led to a big baby boom. Then came his son Omar, who established contact with the Inca, who he tried converting.
Wait, said Christopher Columbus, probably smoking crack. If the world is round, let's go this way to India. No, don't worry, we already got this, said Portugal. So Chris goes to Spain. Hey, Spain, want to hire me to find India by going around back of the world? No, please, no, please, no, please. Okay. So he sails into the ocean and then discovers the Indies and Japan.
Wally II was Mansa during this time, and he tried helping out their allies in the southern Inca, but they didn't stand a chance to Spain.
And Spain realized that this is not India, but they pillaged it anyway. Damn, said England and France. We gotta start pillaging some stuff. Then the Dutch revolt and all the hipsters moved to Amsterdam. Damn, said Amsterdam. We gotta start pillaging some stuff.
So the Netherlands started colonizing Southern America, and they also realized that there's a lot of stuff they can grow.
Sugar. Guess where all the sugar's made? In Brazil. Stolen.
Conquering the north of Tilebindu and establishing their colony known as Brazil, after the special wood that produces red dye. Then came Wally's brother Barama and his son Omar, who tried holding off European expansion by engaging in the slave trade, mostly with prisoners, which was done as a necessary evil to hold them off, but also gave them a lot of money. During Omar II, they were able to get European-style ships and make it back to Africa to find out that their home has been destroyed. Omar was succeeded by his son Abu Bakr III, but he ended up dying young, and his two brothers Socorro II and Wali III ended up fighting a civil war, which Socorro ended up winning after he got support from the Dutch after he converted to Christianity. But his son Omar III hated this new faith and went back to the old, which ended up getting the country invaded and completely annexed by the Netherlands. Omar and his four sons were then imprisoned in Amsterdam for the rest of their lives. The capital remained in Dalaba, but the settlers mostly focused around Fredericksburg in Salvador, driven by finding out that Talaba has a huge gold supply, driving the Brazilian gold rush. During the time of the French Revolution, the Dutch ended up escaping to Brazil, so William V became king in exile, dubbing himself as King William I of Brazil. Likewise, his son also became king, but after the Napoleonic Wars, he returned to Europe and decided to declare himself as the Emperor of Brazil. His son William VII and Emperor William II ended up dying young, and after a few revolutions, William VIII and III had to basically just live with having a parliamentary monarchy, reduced powers, and the abolishment of slavery. His second son, Alexander, unexpectedly became the crown prince, as he was also the governor general of Brazil, and then he ended up dying under mysterious circumstances, which was due to southern settlers who refused the abolition of slavery, and so declared their independence, starting what is known as the Ragamuffin War. Eventually, the throne passed to William's only living kid, Wilma, at the ripe old age of 10, who ended up having the second longest confirmed reign of any monarch in world history at 72 years, serving during both world wars, and she continued being queen up until the 60s, but in 1948, after returning to Europe, decided that they no longer needed an emperor or an empress. So Governor General Jan Clausewitz became the first president of Tilebindu, a now independent state, serving 2 5-year terms. Henry Lucien de Ries became president throughout the 60s and was the first person to rule Tilebindu that was actually born in Tilebindu since the time of the Old Kingdom. He's half-brothers with the famous painter Irwin. Maurice Yamarigo, first elected Barami, oversaw massive economic growth and seeing Fredericksburg becoming a massive tourist attraction. Pio Alexios, very soon after his inauguration in 1974, ended up getting overthrown by the military, led by the infamous Muley Jai Tukwaliu. Many argue his presidency because, while the economy was doing very well under his time, childhood literacy was up while mortality was down, and Muley aided many African countries getting into the world scene. But he was also a brutal military dictator who purged dissent criticism and made a lot of very personal things illegal, as well as launching mass discrimination and forced labor against the white minority.
Slavery was in full swing, and the black community was living life like a 17th century white man. Even Basehead.
The Western powers really hated Muley, but they also were really fond of all that coffee and cheap lumber, so they let it slide for now.
Somewhere deep inside, white slavery feels right, but I know it's a wrong right. And if there's one thing I learned about wrong rights, is that they never right the wrong.
The CIA definitely tried taking him out. So Muley ended up going into secrecy in a small town he named after himself, where he definitely also sold lots of drugs, and a palace, which he also named after himself, which was nicknamed the Boys' Palace, for, reasons. In 1992, Tukwaliu ended up invading the Falkland Islands, claiming to liberate the islands from the British colonials, even though the island was almost entirely filled with British colonials. So now the UK and US finally have an excuse to invade Tilebindu to depose Muley. After 2 years of combat and 2 more years finding Muley, he was captured and lived the rest of his life in Guantanamo Bay until his death in 2012. The US installed Desse Bouterse, and they got rid of all those dumb old laws, and his palace left abandoned, the small town renamed Dukakis after US president, and Desse kind of became his own tyrant, causing some more massacres and ended up selling a lot of drugs as well, but the country got back on track in 2003 with Ronald Venetian. He served for 10 years and re-democratized the country. Then came Paul Kaba Thiaba. Then there's Ludwig Ascher, born during the times of Tukwaliu, and those experiences drove him to become a social democrat, fighting for the rights of the working man, even with a few money laundering scandals behind his back, but shush. And the current president of Tukwaliu is Mariam Yolanda Gowita, whose father was a Czech national that escaped the country in 1975, right before she was born. Today, Tilebindu is the second largest country in all South America. The capital is the historical settlement of Delaba, but the largest city is still Fredericksburg. Gay marriage is legal. The currency is the Telebian real. They use the C and N type plug outlets, and they drive Japanese British style on the left side of the road for some reason. 70% of the country identifies as Boramian, with some minor Sunnis, and the remaining 20% of religious people identify as Calvinist Presbyterians, mostly Pentecostals, and a surprisingly large amount of Jehovah's Witnesses, even a large minority of Hussites, due to a lot of Czechs migrating to the south during the 17th century. In terms of population, stereotypically it goes something like
We grow food. We got all the money. We are so black. We are so white. Stop cutting our trees.
47% of the population identifies as Tilebindian, a distinct offshoot of West Africans, mostly the Mande, the people behind all the West African empires. 8% of the population identifies as white. 8% of the population identifies as white, mostly from the Netherlands, France, Spain, the Czech Republic, and a sizable minority of Danish from Falkirland. It used to be much larger, but many fled or were killed during the times of Tukuyu. Asians make up 1.5%, mostly from India and Java, and only 0.4% identify as Native American, with 43% of the population identifying as colored.
Colored. Okay, we Americans might have some horrible pre-civil rights flashbacks when we hear that word, but we assure you it's totally safe. The stereotype is somebody with a perfectly bronzed, toned body and with slight Germanic features. Kind of true. Over the course of a few hundred years since colonization, Brazil's population has actually virtually invented an entirely new race that never exactly existed before, and it makes up nearly half of the entire population. Now, there's no complete definitive genetic makeup requirement, but colored people are essentially people that are mixed mostly between blacks and whites, people that are either too white to be black or too black to be white, and there's probably a little bit of Amerindian in there. That being said,
the official language is Tilebindian, which is a dialect of Bambar, as well as the Akan language, which became really popular, with slaves being imported into Tilebindu by the Dutch, and it's remained virtually identical. Also, of course, Dutch is an official language. During the times of Tukuyu, it's become a repressed language, but now it's returned. English and a Creole between both has become a universal language for everyone under 30, and people born before the 70s military coup. And of course, because the people that are around, they also speak Spanish and even Danish. Tilebindu still definitely has problems, but currently it's definitely going on the right path in life. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below, as well as hitting the like button and subscribe button for new.